Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our latest Ask the Leaders Facebook Live Q&A. My name is Darryl Smalley, and I'm the Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities at City of York Council. As you'll know, these Facebook Live sessions are now commonplace as the city continues to face major challenges. We understand that many of you will have questions, and that's why we're still here most Thursdays to help you gain some clarity and insight into the big issues facing us all in York. Tonight, we're delighted to be joined by representatives of the city's colleges and skills and learning support services to discuss educational options for young people approaching the end of their secondary school education. We'll be taking your questions on a wide range of topics relevant to anyone in planning their post-16 options for September 2021, including places offered by post-16 training and education in York, vocational qualifications, T-levels and apprenticeships. Before I go on and let the panel introduce themselves, I'd just like to take a minute to highlight the ongoing work of our education team at the council, as well as the many teachers and school staff who have all been excellent at providing support to pupils throughout this difficult time. Our schools and educational staff, caretakers, teachers, teaching assistants and governors continue to do a fantastic job in incredibly difficult and unusual circumstances, prioritising the health, safety and well-being of pupils and staff, and we're all incredibly proud of the support they continue to give pupils in York. So although this last year has been incredibly difficult for many young people, it is really important that we now start to look ahead and start to plan for the future. Whilst there is still 8 months until the start of the autumn term, it's important to have a progression plan in place and apply for places soon. I hope that tonight our expert panel will be able to guide young people through a wide range of post-16 options available locally, and as well as to answer any specific questions you might have. Now I'll stop there and just ask the panel to introduce yourselves one by one. Now I know Zoom looks different on everyone's screen, so I'm not picking favourites, but Phil, do you want to go first?
Yeah, good evening. My name's Phil Taylor. I'm the practice manager for City of York Council's Learning and Work Advisor team. We're a small team who are working with all our schools, all our post-16 providers very closely to support young people into progressing education beyond the end of year 11. So we're specifically focused on working with young people whose schools identify as being at risk of NEET, which we'll talk about. Any young person in the 16 to 18 age group who isn't currently engaging in education or training, and our own young people that are in care. So that's the role of my team.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Phil. John? I think we might have lost John. Don't know if that, unless that's just me. We'll try and get John back, but in the meantime, Lee.
Thanks, Darryl. Hi, everyone. I'm Lee Probert. I'm the Chief Executive and Principal at York College, and we offer a wide range of post-16 options up to and including higher education.
Thank you, Lee. Sandra?
Hello, I'm Sandra Burnhill. I'm Vice Principal at Askham Bryan College, and probably similar to Lee, we offer a wide range of options for our post-16 students at the college, right up to HE as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sandra. And Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Watmore. I work in the skills team. I work for John Thompson, who we've lost at the moment. My specific focus, as you can see, is to encourage apprenticeships within the city. I do this in two ways. I engage with the schools, particularly at this time of year, would normally be going out to the schools, but we're doing that more virtually. We run events during the year to focus on the vacancies that are available in the city. Again, we won't be doing that physically, but we're doing virtual events. And I engage predominantly with the employers to understand across the city what employers are looking for in terms of the emerging talent and the job opportunities that there are going to be across the city.
That's brilliant. Thank you, John. And I believe we're trying to get John back. But if John does come back, to save on the introduction, John is City of York Council's Head of Secondary and Skills. I think, and in the background, I should say as well, we have got people from the transport, highways, and in particular the team that have been dealing with flooding. So I know if anyone's made it outside today and enjoyed the drizzle and rain, I know that we're still, obviously, certain communities in York and around York on flood alert. And although the river's going down, if there are any questions that we have on how York dealt with the floods or what might happen in the future, then do put them in, ask them live, and we can answer those tonight. Moving on then, thank you everyone. And for those that haven't watched Facebook Live Q&As before, we have pre-submitted questions as well as wider conversation topics highlighted for discussion, and we will begin by answering these. But please don't forget that you can ask questions live in the comment section, and our communications team here at the council is trawling through them, and we'll get to answer them live. So moving on to our sort of first question to sort of start this evening off, and I don't know whether perhaps John or Bob, either of you wanted to take this first, but generally, what are the benefits of apprenticeships and traineeships, and who would be best suited to take these on? I don't know who wants to jump in on that. Probably Bob, given
yeah,
that not
clearly. The primary benefit about any of those vocational education programs through traineeships or apprenticeships is that you're immediately engaging with employers. So you're immediately engaging in starting a career, learning the sectorial needs of that particular employment sector in terms of skills and knowledge and behaviours that are going to make that career successful. Obviously, if it's as an apprenticeship, then that starts your journey as paid employment as well, and the employer supporting that development to meet their needs of new staff and talent within their business, whilst recognising the needs to help you develop those skills and behaviours. So, and they're open to, of course, everybody and at any level now to help support the needs of employers to bring in a diverse range of skills into their business. And Sandra and Lee may wish to comment, because obviously both of them as providers support this opportunity in the city.
Yes, I can add to that. So in terms of a fantastic opportunity for young people to take on an apprenticeship, actually we're quite buoyant in the land-based sector particularly, so, and horticulture and various sectors actually have maintained good vacancies actually. So, you know, do please, you know, apply for the vacancies for apprenticeships. Yeah, fantastic opportunity for young people, for those that want to earn while they're learning as well, you know, so a very good opportunity for some young people.
Lee?
I agree with Sandra and Bob there. Darryl, earning and learning, probably one of the attractive benefits of an apprenticeship programme, and also some sectors continuing to boom despite what's going on. Construction, for example, lots of opportunities continuing to be available in that sector. So do talk to your provider of choice. Don't rule out apprenticeships based on what you're hearing about the economy, and do have that early conversation.
That's brilliant, thank you, Lee. And I guess following on from that, in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on how people experience apprenticeships, I don't know really who wants to jump on this first, but can students expect more leniency in regards to the grades they require for college or apprenticeships, especially since the disruption posed by COVID? I think, Bob, do you want to go first?
Well, I'll talk about the market, and then I'm sure Sandra and Lee can answer the latter part of that question. Obviously, the market and the employment opportunities has been affected the same as all other sectors, but as Sandra has said, certain sectors have carried on regardless, and actually they've been the sectors that society has seen supporting them in terms of health and care and early years childcare, but also all of those involved in food supply, food manufacturing, distribution, anything involved in the food supply in supermarkets, etc., but also in delivery and logistics companies. So that has actually continued and proportionately has actually grown. Of course, we all hope that as we move forward through this year, that certain other sectors that the city has always been strong on will recover, and will recover strongly based on what the UK economy and what the UK population need to do. For example, in terms of the hospitality and tourism sector for York. In terms of grading and what have you, I'm sure Sandra and Lee would probably like to comment on that.
Yes,
Sandra?
Sorry.
Go for it, Sandra, yeah.
No, it's all right, Lee, you go first.
In terms of grading, of course, we've got some experience of taking students on through a process of enrolment which didn't involve formal examinations. in the main, colleges and schools, other providers will probably stick to their normal entry requirements, because we want to be certain that the course is right for you, that you can benefit from the course, and that you will ultimately be able to make progress. But we do also understand that there are difficulties with the experience that students have had over certainly the last 12 months, and a lot of disruption. So first thing to do is to talk to the provider that you're interested in applying to, talk to them about the sorts of grades that your current school or provider is talking to you about anticipating having. Of course, we don't yet know what the full process is going to be for giving out all of the qualifications this year, but there will be an element of teacher assessment. We know that teachers will make good judgments about the sorts of abilities that young people have got, and in most circumstances we will definitely have a course for you at the right level, whatever the outcomes are for your grades.
Yeah, and just supporting what Lee said, absolutely. The key is just to apply, get your applications in, and quite rightly, we'll look at everybody's grades individually and finding the most suitable level of course, the best course for you, really. So absolutely support exactly what Lee's saying.
Thank you. We've had a live question just come in, which is probably almost certainly is best for Lee, which is will students have live interviews for York College? And I don't know if Sandra, after, you might want to say about the process for Askham Bryan.
The answer to that question, Darryl, is it'll depend on the subject, and it'll depend on the sort of course. So if you're applying online and you've already got your qualifications, you definitely meet the entry criteria, then it's likely you won't need to have an interview. If you're coming onto a course where you need some advice and guidance, then it may be that you're invited to take part in an interview with a member of either our admissions and enrolment team or a member of academic staff, depending on the programme. Best thing to do is talk to us about the specific course, and we'll tell you whether, in your circumstances, whether you need to have an interview or not.
That's brilliant. Will they be virtual, I guess, or in person?
All virtual.
All virtual.
Yes. And same at the Askham Bryan College, we're doing virtual interviews, virtual open days. Got the open day on this Saturday, actually. So if you're interested in sort of Askham Bryan College, we've got an event, a live event, virtual event this Saturday as well. But yeah, most of it's either telephone interviews or virtual interviews.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sandra. Bob.
And yeah, if I can add, of course, employers have all had to adapt in the same way. So these skills associated with dealing digitally and online are now actually the skills that employers are more than happy embracing. I know that one of our pinnacle employers in the city, Nestlé, for example, they recruited all of their cohort of new starts this year virtually. They inducted them virtually and started them in their job roles virtually. So, it's really important that young people understand that these digital and online skills are something that are going to help them into employment, because employers themselves have had to adapt this way as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob. And we've had a follow-up question from Claire. Will potential students have an opportunity to look around the college?
So at the moment, our open days are all online, and we're trying to create as much interactive content as we can so that you can see the facilities. We are in the process of talking to secondary schools in the area, so to try and organise ways of groups of year 11s and their families to come and look around the facilities, but we won't be able to do that until we're out of a national lockdown, and that's likely to be well into the summer period, I've thought, before we're able to have people back on campus. So at the moment, online, there is an opportunity to interact with staff. We are creating videos and so on, and virtual tours of our facilities, and I know Sandra's doing the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, we'd like, Lee, once we're out of lockdown, we're looking at obviously bringing students then back on site, and hopefully in the summer term, yes, we'll be able to do some real open days and actually get you on site to have a look around.
We're all looking forward to the end of to March and the end of lockdown. Another question potentially for Lee and yourself, Sandra. What support will there be in place to assist those students who might be struggling more due to the disruption brought by COVID-19, and perhaps even the anxiety that the past year has caused many students? I don't know, Sandra, do you want to?
Yes, can do. I mean, that's our biggest sort of challenge at the moment with our students, in terms of putting in place some key mental health strategies. For students, it's absolutely what we're spending a lot of our time and energy on at the moment, making sure all our students are well supported, you know, through the virtual, you know, situations that we have, you know, so we're doing a lot, and I know Lee's the same, that we're all doing, you know, as much as we can for our students. So I think the message to any students applying is absolutely, we've got that in place, you know, as much support as we can give. We've got a very comprehensive student services, counselling services and various things, because, you know, it is a very trying time for everybody at the moment.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Lee?
Thanks, Darryl. Like Sandra, we've got all of our support services available online, so counselling, welfare, safeguarding, all of that is available online. This year we've had access to something called the tuition fund, where we've been able to create small groups of for catch-up classes for individuals to help to make sure that they're where they expected to be. When the Prime Minister gave an update yesterday, he announced another £300 million worth of funding for a similar thing. We've yet to see the detail, but if that means that we can provide small group catch-up tuition, then that's exactly what we'll do, and we'll make sure the students are supported. Students this year came to us from a range of starting points, and we've had a really good experience in making sure that students feel as well supported as they can in having access to both face-to-face learning and online learning, so that we're as confident as we can be that students will fare really well and achieve their qualifications this year, with no reason to think we won't be able to replicate that for students joining us in September.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Lee. Did I spot a hand there, Bob, or was it? Oh no, sorry, that was just there's everyone Zoom. No, and I think, you know, without being flippant, I know when I sat my exams and BTECs, and you know, I thought if it was a rainy day, I thought that was as much disruption as there could possibly be to my sort of sitting in an exam, and actually, you know, looking at what people have had to experience over last year and now coming ahead to this year.
Yeah, and I have to say the students have been absolutely fantastic, you know, really, really good through really, really adverse circumstances. They've been fantastic, really good.
Yeah. Bob?
Yeah, I will come in on that, because I attend a lot of employer events. During lockdown, it's all been virtual like this. And I can assure all students, all parents, that employers are very keen, understanding the situation they've been, to actually ask those questions about how did they show coping strategies, how did they show that resilience, what did they do during the period of time, how did they overcome? And that's because those are employability skills. Don't kid yourselves that in any job, in any employer, things will go wrong, things will need to be overcome. And actually the ability to understand those and work, teamwork, problem solving, be resilient, come up with ideas and solutions to what might be going wrong in a business, they're the employability skills on top of the academic education. And thankfully, I can see Sandra and Lee nodding to that, and we understand that. But it's really important to get that point across. There is nothing, in a sense, better than to show what has been achieved during this period of time to a prospective employer.
Thank you so much, Bob. We've had a question from James live on Facebook. When should students hear back after applying to York College after A-levels?
So we're issuing admissions decisions every day, so it will depend when the application came in and where it is in our process, but it shouldn't be much longer than certainly before this side of half term that people know what their application process is.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Lee. And I know it's almost as anxiety inducing as waiting for your exam, isn't it? Waiting to hear back from applications. Potentially to John and Bob this question. Sorry, not John. And we are trying to get John back. John is almost here in spirit. The number of times I keep mentioning his name. But to Bob, perhaps, has the pandemic disrupted the apprenticeships available and the traineeships available as well?
Yeah, sadly, I think I said earlier on, you know, the reality is that those sectors that have been most affected have also seen a reduction in the number of vacancies, and other sectors have done well. You know, we continue to monitor it. It's grown a little bit since the back end of last year. And those sectors that are actually recruiting quite strongly. They're engaged in those sectors of society that we've needed, as well as, I think Lee mentioned, you know, construction has remained strong. For example, within the city is entering a significant stage of construction in the next few years, as you know, Darryl. So it's about understanding the vacancies that are there, and hoping, if that's not the particular sector that you want to be employed in, that things as we move into recovery will recover. Tourism, hospitality, retail will take longer to recover. It's just going to be a fact of the situation that we're in. Hopefully it will time with the next cohorts of students leaving the full-time or leaving the school education system anyway. And I think, you know, we'll get round to the subjects in a bit as to what we do about the current learners, such as the Kickstart programme, on a subsequent question, I think.
I was about to mention that, and you've beaten me to it, but no, exactly, Bob. A question that many people, I know all institutions being asked at the moment, is how much contact time pupils can expect to receive in the next year. And I know it's almost, planning at the moment is incredibly difficult, I can imagine. But I don't know who, Sandra, perhaps, do you want to talk about this?
Yep, I can start. I mean, at the moment, we're obviously doing, it's all virtual, apart from students with EHCPs at the moment who are actually coming on site. But we, all the last term, we did a mixture, probably similar to Lee. We did a mixture of online learning and face-to-face delivery. I mean, with the nature of our courses, obviously the practical nature of the courses, then we try and get students on site as much as we can. Because in terms of lambing a sheep, you really need to have a go at doing it rather than watching it being lambed. So it's a case of trying to get the students on site as much as we can for the practical activities, and where we can deliver theory online, that we can deliver that online. And I'm hoping by September, hopefully, that we'll be able to, flip that to mainly on site.
Thank you, Sandra. Lee?
Yeah, so if we're able to get back to normality, then our students should expect to be in for between 3 and 4 full days, depending on what sort of course they're on. And for things like A-level subjects, we'd expect students to undertake as much independent study as they're receiving in face-to-face tuition. So if you're getting 15 hours taught, you're expected to replicate that with ongoing independent learning. Like Sandra, we've been successful in managing both face-to-face learning on site and online, and we'll try to hopefully replicate that again if it's required in the coming year, but feeling more optimistic that we'll have much more people on campus, much more face-to-face tuition from the start of a new academic year.
Brilliant. And I guess it's not starting from scratch anymore, is it? I think all the processes and procedures in terms of making sure they're safe, and so brilliant. Thank you so much, and welcome back, John. I think we had you very briefly, but welcome back. Perhaps would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, John Thompson. I'm Head of Secondary and Skills for City of York Council. So I work very closely with all of our secondary schools, and also good relationships with the colleges. And Bob Watmore and our skills team are part of my area. So pleased to be back, and just usual advice to anybody who has an internet or computer problem: switch it off and switch it on again. It usually resolves it.
So we are experiencing live tonight the sort of the trials and tribulations of doing things live. Exactly.
And school life. This is what it's like when you're teaching.
Brilliant, John. Well, we've only just covered this, but you might want to. I know Bob answered it, but you might want to touch on this from your experiences. Has the pandemic disrupted the available apprenticeship and traineeship schemes? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Bob's our man on the ground, and I mean, everybody can see that there's been significant disruption just when you walk through the city and you look at the retail sector. Everybody can watch the local news from BBC and ITV. Everybody can read the press and hear about closures and work being temporarily suspended or postponed, and everybody knows somebody who is on furlough and not working you know, unlike those of us in this meeting who have been able to continue. And so, you know, there's significant disruption to what would normally be happening at this time of year. Now we're gearing up for National Apprenticeship Week, and Bob and the team and the colleges and everybody else will be putting in a lot of effort that in February, and we would then normally go to a recruitment fair and have you know, a lot of employers seeking to recruit. And at the moment, that they, like us, are waiting to see how the lockdown unwinds, and you know, what the route back to normal or higher levels of business, because it won't be the same. I think we've got to stop talking about normal, but you know, when we get back to higher levels of activity, what it's going to be like. But you know, quite clearly things will come back, but it is going to take time.
Thank you ever so much, John. We've had a question from Angie live on Facebook, which is, when do applications for apprenticeships need to be in by? Who wants to, Bob, do you want to take that first?
Well, a lot of apprenticeships that are advertised on the Find an Apprenticeship website are effectively roll on, roll off. I've got it up on my other screen. There are adverts that are on there right now with closing dates in the next month. Now, I know that that's not massively useful for those that are emerging out of the schooling system later in the summer, but we always advocate that people go onto that site and start looking at the kind of vacancies. You can set up an alert system for later in the year so that vacancies that are in the sectors you're interested in will alert to you via an email and take you through the application process. As John says, we run a number of events in the year, and that's around the fact that, yes, there does tend to be a peak of vacancies into the summer periods. There are certain traditional sectors that employ the majority of their apprentices during the late summer, early autumn period, purely on the basis of recruiting those that have just emerged from the various school education systems or college education systems. But generally nowadays, a lot of vacancies are available year round to pick up on those that are changing careers or those that are looking for vacancies in particular sectors.
Thank you, Bob. Does anybody else want to come in on that question?
I need to echo what Bob said. Yeah, vacancies are open all the time, so just keep looking and get your application forms in. Yes.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Sandra. A question perhaps to Phil and to Bob is, what financial support might be available to underprivileged households looking to support young children going into education? I don't know, Phil, do you want to take that one first?
Was it financial support that we specifically were talking about? Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's very much depends on the individual sort of circumstance of that family and the income of that family. All of the providers will have usually a sort of a bursary fund that they're able to allocate to those people who are able to meet eligibility criteria. Obviously, if a young person is in care or a care leaver is in receipt of a particular kind of benefit, then they're normally given a sort of guaranteed payment, which can be made in different forms depending on what your needs are, up to £1,200 a year. Our care leavers receive a bursary payment that's guaranteed anyway if they go on to do something like an apprenticeship. But hopefully colleagues in the institutions, the colleges, will probably echo that. I think if students are particularly in financial hardship and feel as if they could do with a conversation about that, and particularly find that they need some help in order to continue to access what it is they're trying to study, they should approach colleges and ask them about that, because in my experiences, the colleges are very good at wanting to support the students where they can and making the best use of their sort of limited bursary pot. So that's the sort of general advice. If you want to in one of those key groups, or you're in receipt of benefit, or you generally feel as if you might need some support, you can approach those providers and they'll give you further advice. Hopefully that's helpful to some point. Colleges might want to add a bit.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Phil. Does anybody else want to come in on this question? question.
Again, just to echo what Phil said, yeah, we have bursary funds, obviously free school meals, so absolutely, yes, and do, you know, raise, particularly at your interview time, that's the time to ask the questions, you know, about what support. We also provide transport, you know, various things in the college, so absolutely do ask the questions at interview.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Sandra. Lee, I saw you nodding. Is there anything of the...
I guess the only other thing to say is that those bursaries are, in addition to potentially providing an ongoing payment to students, can also be used right at the start of a course where there might be expensive equipment to buy. So if you're needing tools for a particular trade or catering, or you're doing hairdressing, or you need uniform or whatever, then we might also be able to provide support for that. So as Sandra said, these are all really helpful things to raise at the interview, and certainly don't feel that there's any shame or any problem in asking about the support that's available. That the support's there for students, it's the students' money, we don't spend on anything else, so make sure it's all drawn down and spent to support you to be successful on your courses.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you to Phil and Sandra as well for that great response to the question. Just so we're not accused of not tackling the tough questions, and this isn't obviously strictly to do with post-16 education, but Paul, your question on what's the council going to do about empty shops in the city centre, you know, a question councils has been asked for decades now, and so we were talking about how tough it is for the high street well before the pandemic, and obviously, you know, it's only exacerbated the difficulties faced by bricks and mortar retail. I think I would just encourage you to get involved in the My City Centre consultation that, like everything in the pandemic, has been paused, but nonetheless is still open online. If you go to york.gov.uk/My City Centre York, and there's the consultation's still live, and there's loads of information there about how to get involved. And I would just say, as the council as a tenant, the council you know, does own a significant number of retail premises and uses the profit to reinvest that back into council services, and we have paused. We did pause right at the start of the pandemic a lot of the rent on our 350 commercial properties. And then your other part of the question about the new major development starting this week and how roads are going to cope. It was great news, obviously, that the work on York Central has commenced, and the work that is about infrastructure. So it is a new bridge across the East Coast Main Line and other arterial roads through the York Central site. So hopefully the work that's going on will stop some of that potential issues. Lee.
Just to add to that, Darryl, I know we're principally talking about education for school leavers, but there's an enormous amount of opportunity for adults to be retraining. One of the things that we're also doing in partnership with the council is to develop a new strategy for skills and jobs, and in partnership in particular with the University of York, trying to look at that theme of entrepreneurship and how we support people who might have found themselves out of work to retrain, to develop and enhance their entrepreneurship, and that might enable us to fill some of that space within the city centre, and of course the developments alongside York Central. So there's as much going on educationally for adults as there is for young people in our city, and that's something to be really proud of for all of us, so that people who have found themselves in that position of being out of work and perhaps out of their business perhaps can work with us to find a different way of interacting and engaging with that sense of economic vibrancy that the city deserves.
No, exactly, Lee. And just before I bring you in, Bob, but just I received my York Learning brochure today through the post. So I think if you have received that, it's just a small plug. There are other providers in the city, but yeah, do have a flick through that when you've got a chance, because there are some fantastic courses, virtual of course, through that booklet. But Bob.
Yeah, it's as you say, slightly off the theme of school leavers, but Lee's quite right. And apprenticeships at any age, a lot of employers using apprenticeships as a way of retraining and redeploying staff, of recruiting more mature staff into health and social care sectors, for example, from completely different industries to help in retraining. And yeah, that whole city centre redevelopment, you know, we have been involved in working with the main contractors to make sure that there is recruitment of apprenticeships during the programme, that there's a legacy left of employment of youth and young people within the actual deliveries of the programmes, but of course within the businesses that will occupy the redevelopment in terms of the job opportunities that will come through. I know that maybe, of course, isn't a conversation that sounds directly appropriate to those that are leaving the education system this year, but it does all fit together in terms of providing the opportunities.
Thank you, Bob. And that, although a bit of a segue, I hope was really helpful to those watching. This is probably again to you, Bob, and it follows on exactly from that. And what employment sectors are likely to have apprenticeship vacancies for those pupils currently looking at that route?
Well, right now, as we've said, the certain sectors that have done well or have maintained throughout the situation. And then as we move into the summer, and we did actually start to see some in hospitality at the back end of last year. Certain of the traditional businesses in the city started having introductory levels as chefs, but they've gone on hold again. But they will come back, as John said. You know, that there's no reason why these won't come back as we move into the summer. And actually, based on you know, the potential of travel corridors out of the UK, the hospitality and tourism sector opportunity for York over this summer may be a distinct opportunity. So those vacancies will come back. You need to go onto the websites, as Sandra said, keep looking. You know, when those vacancies are available, we won't be shy in terms of publicising them and getting them out there as soon as possible to be filled.
Thanks, Bob. Phil?
Yeah, I just wanted to just add to that, really. If you're out there looking for an apprenticeship and that's your plan A, that would be your preference. That's all well and good, but I think a general piece of advice and guidance around sort of progression planning would be consider what it is that you're looking to get into in an apprenticeship, and give serious consideration to applying to college and sixth form courses that would be helpful while you're in that search for an apprenticeship. Because I think, you know, as Bob had previously said, apprenticeship recruitment happens all year round. If you're interested in becoming a chef or becoming a joiner or becoming someone who works in a childcare setting or any of those areas where apprenticeships are available, you'll generally find that there are college and sixth form courses available in those things too. So I think a general piece of advice would be start looking at the apprenticeship vacancies, bear that in mind, but have your plan with at least the plan B where you're sort of thinking, well, it would be sensible for me to apply to those college courses too. I'll keep looking for an apprenticeship. I'm sure the colleges will tell you if you want a joinery apprenticeship and they're hard to come by, apply to do that at one of the colleges, or that's just an example. It could have been any job you like. You can keep looking for vacancies in apprenticeships. If you find an apprenticeship in that area, it may well be that you're able to switch, but there'll certainly be discussion about what's right for you. So I think to give yourself the best chance and to play it sensible and give yourself a contingency, look at apprenticeship vacancies, consider all of the college options as well, because that will give you certain level of protection and is, you know, probably the most pragmatic way of going ahead to post-16 options. Just a little bit of advice there.
And again, if you do apply for apprenticeship, we will help you, you know, in terms of vacancies and matching you to current vacancies, you know, in terms of looking for jobs and things as well. So, you know, do apply to the colleges, and then we will, you know, try and look for the jobs for you and try and, you know, vacancy match with the current employer.
Yeah. I think sometimes students and families think that you have to reach a point where you've decided one thing and you apply for one thing. I find in the work that we do, this is fairly common. It's nobody's fault. It's just an idea that seems to float out there, that there's a cut-off when you have to decide the one thing that you want to do, and when you've made that decision, that's kind of what you're stuck with. And that's not true. You know, everybody tonight will tell you the same thing. You can apply for whatever you want to apply for. You can apply for more than one thing. You can change your mind. You know, there's time to be able to do that. So I think that if that helps to alleviate some pressure and some anxiety on people facing the prospect of post-16 choices, that you know, I'd be pleased about that, because you don't have to be confined to one thing, and you don't have to stick to it. You can apply for apprenticeships and college courses. You can apply to more than one college. It's about what you want to do and what's right for you and what your skill and your qualification levels are. So that's an extra piece of information that might not be that well known.
Brilliant, Phil. Bob?
Yeah, just to build on Phil, you know, I've worked with a lot of young people when they come to that period, and to be honest, nothing better than to actually have some options, and then the stress is the choice of which one to go with.
That's brilliant. And I know, for example, when I was at sixth form, I changed my mind. I think I did push the boundary a bit. I think, the poor people working out places, weren't best pleased with me. But actually, having that flexibility really helped. And I did something completely different to what I thought I was would have been doing 2 years before that. So really, I personally benefited from changing my mind. This is Phil and Bob, and it has been mentioned before, right at the start actually, there have been discussions tonight and a lot in the media about the government schemes that have been available both pre-pandemic and since the pandemic. One example being the Kickstart scheme to help young people into education. Just a simple one, is this available in York? So who wants to, Phil or Bob? Do you want to go first on that one?
I'll certainly start. Yes, particularly since the early part of January, apart from a couple of discrete areas, then actually the number of vacancies have started to pick up. They're all being managed by DWP through the Department of Work and Pension by their work coaches. And it's really great that those are from some of the smaller employers across the city, but also some of the larger employers. It's definitely the case. It's not the volume that would have been anticipated last autumn. But then, of course, a lot of businesses had to change their direction last autumn. And one significant employer in the city gave a commitment to take a number of on, and is going to honour that commitment, but has now had to delay the actual start of it because they felt that they couldn't have them virtually working. So they are picking up. The Chancellor has just announced some flexibility on how that's going to progress beyond and into February. And the programme currently runs to the end of December this year, 2021. I'm sure that'll be reviewed if the need is potentially still there to help people into employment via the government paid scheme for 6 months to pay them in their employment with an employer. And it's been very gratifying to see organisations that I work with, like the Chamber of Commerce and the Federation of Small Businesses, very strongly coming forward and saying, yeah, we can support this. Let's develop the placements.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bob. Phil, did you want to come in, or does anyone else want to come in?
I don't think I have anything to add, really. I think, that's a good summary, really, from Bob. Yeah, nothing to put in there.
And we've seen how they can change and adapt to whatever happens. So I think just keeping up to date with all the various schemes. We've had a question from Claire. Can you change your course at York College once you've started if you think you've made a mistake? Lee?
Yes, is the answer. We normally ask students to stick with a course for about 4 weeks to make sure they're absolutely sure they want to change. But all through the autumn term, we have a campaign called Swap Don't Drop. The worst thing that I would want any student joining us at the start of the new year is to be stuck on a course that isn't right for them. So we actively have this campaign called Swap Don't Drop, where we encourage students to put their hands up and say, I've made a mistake, this wasn't the course for me, and to talk to us about making sure they get onto the right course. We'd absolutely far rather have students on the right course, and even with the right provider. If you find that actually this isn't where you thought you wanted to be and you prefer to be at Askham, Bryan, or independent training provider back at your school sixth form, we can help you to make all of those things right as well.
Thanks, Lee. John?
Yeah, just wanted to say, I mean, obviously this is kind of second year of students applying in a pandemic situation, and both the colleges and the school sixth forms have got experience now of doing it once. It's slightly different this year in that current year 11 have had 2 lots of disruption, if you like, not just the one. But it was certainly true that last time round there was a degree more volatility in all of the institutions, school sixth forms and colleges, more students making changes because they hadn't had that opportunity to really sit down and talk to teachers, to college staff, etc. before courses starting. And that's why the people on tonight's session are attaching such importance to that. And obviously during the course of the summer term, that's when I have those conversations so that you've got the best chance of being on the right course, because nobody wants people to start courses that they're going to drop. Nobody wants people to start courses that they're going to fail. But obviously we all do mistakes, as Darryl has already said. We all make mistakes and change our minds. But yeah, there is a degree of change, particularly in the first half of the autumn term. Bound to be.
Sandra, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd echo that. And again, I think the key is just talk to your course tutor, course mentor. Just if you think, oh no, this definitely isn't for me now, by all means, talk to the staff, and we can always change courses. There's always some other course or an apprenticeship or whatever, or like Lisa, different institution. We can sort it. So absolutely, talk to your tutors.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee, John, and Sandra. And I think I'll out myself. It was maths and physics that I started and never actually finished. So
what did you do then,
Darryl?
Well,
I know.
And then I changed to sociology and then product design. So which I'm still using now with the other side of the filler, the other side of this table. So still coming in handy today. Moving on. There we go. We've got another. We possibly fulfill this question. What support and information is there available for parents, carers, and young people with special educational needs and disabled young people looking at their next steps in their education?
Okay, yeah, it's a really good question and a really important question. Obviously, York has a local offer for all of its young people, specifically for young people and families where they do have children with special educational needs. That's a lot. All the information around that is available on the You're OK website. I won't read all of that out because I believe it'll go. The relevant attachments and links will go into accompanying material for this. We'd encourage people to come and get that information support from us. We have an SEN team who will advise you. My team of learning and work advisors, and we have an equivalent team for those people who have education, health and care plans, who will offer you impartial careers advice and guidance and support to talk through what those options are. We also have an option to go to speak to SENDIAS if you want independent advice on SEN matters. So there's good sort of ways in there that people can access where they can pick up the information about what the local offer is, find out about how that's differentiated, find out where they can get additional advice and support and guidance on how to navigate and apply for those things. I just encourage people to make use of that. Check out the local offer on the website, speak to us. You can arrange for us to contact you and we'll talk you through on a one-to-one basis, which I think a lot of the time is the most important thing. People's circumstances are unique, their questions are unique. Not everything can be typed into a box and have an electronic response. We've got teams of people that are there to talk you through that with support, so it doesn't become too complicated or as we know is a big issue for lots of students, especially recently, trying to contemplate all this, provoking lots of anxiety. We want to help with that. We don't want that to be the case. So I'd encourage people to access that and access the support.
Thank you so much, Phil. And I see a colleague from the council has put in the Facebook live chat the link there that you mentioned. So
brilliant. That's
hopefully
great.
everyone will find that helpful.
Darryl?
Bob, yep.
And just to reassure from that, there is a genuine significant growth in employers' appreciation of neurodiversity and the value that it brings to employers and certain employers in certain sectors that with the staff that they now employ have seen the very significant benefits of inclusivity and diversity within their employment of staff as a real asset to how they're actually progressing their business and how those skills of certain jobs and certain areas are outperformed by individuals who bring a diversity to their workforce, and also how that helps the rest of the workforce harmonise those individuals into the workforce. It's not just talking about it now. There are really good examples in York of employers who are really valuing that now, beyond the need to be transparent about such subjects in terms of their recruitment processes. So it's good news, and we work very closely with Phil to try and make sure that all young people get an opportunity in York.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Bob and Phil. And I know it's different end of the spectrum, but I know, visited choose to use base in drink houses, and seeing how they'd adapted to COVID-19 was incredibly impressive. Just the effort and making sure that everyone had a great education and time, that despite the challenges that COVID-19 brings. We've actually run out of our pre-prepared questions. So if anyone watching was worried that we wouldn't get to their question and was holding back, do put it in, and we've still got 6 minutes or so. So do ask your question, but perhaps actually, so we've got 6 minutes. That's almost it's a minute each and then some. Perhaps if we go around, just sort of final thoughts and advice for those thinking of their post-16 options. Phil, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just I think the main thing for me would be to urge young people and families to try not to become too anxious about this situation. I think there are lots and lots of questions and would normally be around this transition and contemplating post-16 options. The pandemic situation makes that seem much more complex, I understand, and I think as well, we know that lots of our young people and families are perhaps struggling with aspects of anxiety, and that all makes the whole prospect of trying to navigate this seem to be a little bit overwhelming for some families and young people. And I would just kind of try to reinforce those key messages. The support, there's lots of support and advice and guidance around in your schools, through my team, through the City of York Council's, SEND department, through the skills team, employers. Talk to make sure that you access that information. Take your time, consider your choices carefully, realize that you can make several choices and change your mind. That's another important thing. And try to just approach it like that, so it doesn't become something that's unwieldy and too detailed and too confusing. There is advice and guidance and support out there which will enable you to make that choice, and we'll try and support you with the transition into whatever it is that you do after summer. So yeah, the main message, I think, is don't panic.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you, Phil. I wish I'd heard that when I was thinking about it. Lee, do you want to go next? We'll just go around.
I'd echo what Phil said. I mean, whilst there's lots of uncertainties, there are some certainties. So you will get a package of qualifications. If you're leaving year 11 this year, your school or current provider will move heaven and earth to make sure you get the qualifications that you deserve. The post-16 provider that you choose will use those qualifications and what they know about you and what they tell them to get you on the course that's right for you, and to make sure that you're supported to transition from where you currently are to where you want to be in the future. The most important thing that you can do is to keep talking to wherever it is that you want to go to next, to make sure we know as much about you as possible, your hopes, dreams, ambitions, and to make sure that we can support you. And once you're here, or wherever it is, do talk to us if you think actually it's not for me. There's more writing than I thought. I didn't realise there was all this practical work. I didn't realise there were so many exams to do. Make sure we know that you will have a personal tutor, certainly if you come here. That person is as committed to your success as you will be, and they will support you to make the decision that's right for you in the future and going forward. So very best of luck from all of us, and everybody is rooting for your success in the future.
Thank you so much, Lee. Sandra.
Yeah, again, echoing what Lee said, really, get your applications in. Our applications are actually higher than they were at this time last year. So I think the positive, to take out is that students are applying. Lots have applied early because I think they think, things are going to get better. So that's a real positive sign that, students are very focused on the future and what they want to do. So, do get those applications in, and a bit like Lee says, apply for a number of courses, apply for a number of colleges. In some ways it's easier to do it because you can do it virtually now. So actually, you can have those initial conversations, online as well, and then when we can get back on site, you know, come and have a look at the colleges, you know, get a feel for what it feels like, and talk to, like I said, like Phil says, ask the questions. If you've got SEN, you know, ask those questions at interview, you know, get that support in place that you need, you know, and get those applications in.
Thank you, Sandra. John?
Yeah, I think the reason we're doing this tonight is because we want people to get on with the job of looking for their progression route, and it is around this time of year that colleges and schools, sixth forms, and other organisations are looking for applications. So we don't want to deviate from that. Don't leave it to the last minute. Get on with it is the message. But also just to say, you know, young people in York have got an absolutely fantastic choice. We have got, you know, a really, really strong York College, general FE provision, hub of an Institute of Technology, massive land-based college operating across the whole of north of England. We have got 5 school sixth forms which are collectively amongst the strongest in the country, as well as being an economic centre which is able to offer apprenticeships, employment and other training. Okay, there are an awful lot worse places to be than here. You have a lot of opportunities, make the most of them.
Thank you so much, John. Really heartwarming. And last but not least, Bob. And the joy of going last is that everyone said it. But
so yeah, echoing what everybody said, I want to pull together a couple of themes that Phil introduced about having multiple plans. And I want to bring it back to a point I raised earlier about what employers look for in terms of skills. Use this time to develop your research, interrogation, investigation skills. Don't just look at that one option, because actually, particularly in this virtual world and researching the opportunities, that can be, if you go towards employment, for example, can be part of that conversation at interview as to what it is you did, but also their employability skills. Everybody is employed in a sector now where generally there'll be a need for you to go and research and find something out and come back to your employer and say, I found this, we could use this, we could do it that way. And of course, we've got the breadth of the internet now to be able to go and find that information. So treat this as an opportunity to hone those skills during this period of time, to come up with multiple options of what it is that you might do. And best wishes with doing it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Bob. And on that note, and with an eye that it's now 6 o'clock, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who asked a question today. I see, Kevin, you've just asked a question, but hopefully we've answered it in the chat there. It is certainly valuable for all of us to hear your views, and we'll continue to hold Facebook Live Q&As on other important subjects in the future, and I'm sure, no doubt, we'll come back to education. And I'd like to thank our panellists this evening for giving their time and insight this evening, because, you know, whilst the council can force me to be here, we've got lots of other partners here that give up their time to take part in these. And thank you ever so much for coming along, and it is really appreciated by us and everyone watching. Finally, feel free to leave your questions and comments on the Facebook Live chat on Facebook, and the council's team will try and get back to you within the next 24 hours. Just giving you advice and support to any questions. And with that, I'll say thank you to Phil, to Lee, to Sandra, John and Bob, and thank you to all those watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Best of luck.
Thank you.